All right, here we go. What up, A-Pushers? How you guys doing, huh? Well, this is chapter 3. I know I said I was going to do it the other day, but I didn't. Things came up and I couldn't get to it. So I am today. Today is Wednesday, 11:38 a.m., August the 3rd. I have to report to work tomorrow. I just found out I have 184 of you, which is a lot. So, yeah. That's going to be fun. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I just found out that's the most I've ever had. That's for sure. So I don't know. Hopefully, everybody really wants to be here. So, let's go. You guys know what we're doing. And I got a couple announcements, but we'll do that after the intro. What up? All right, here we go. I gotta adjust that intro. I did that a couple years ago when we went to, I guess that would be your 8th grade year, right? March of 2020 when we went to YouTube. I was doing YouTube lectures instead of doing Google Classroom. So, anyways, let's get rid of my huge face here, and so we can pull up your chapter 3 notes. All right, this is settling the English colonies. Now, just as a reminder, you are not writing everything down that you see. Okay, you need to figure out the more important things. I will grade you on the relevance of your notes, because there's going to be a lot of things that I say outside of the notes that are irrelevant, because that's what makes some things fun in a class that we lecture this much. And when we get into classrooms, you guys will be interacting and it'll be even better. And I'll tell you what, you need to interact. Don't just sit there and, whatever. You need to interact with me, not too much talking, but, we get this stuff done, bop, 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 and then, we move on. So, we have chapter 3 here, settling the English colonies. There's going to be some overlap with chapter 2. So, there's 29 slides on this. We'll try to bust through them pretty quickly. We don't want to be here all day. I know I don't. Last day of summer. But we do what we got to do. We do what we got to do. Okay. I think that's it. That's all announcements. Yeah, just don't write everything down. Meaningful notes. Okay? And you're going to bring those in. I think I put on there the 25th on Google Classroom. If you do not know the Google Classroom and you're finding this first, which is kind of weird, but just email me, jonathan.w.green@palmbeachschools.org. There we go. Okay, let's get going. Let me see here. Bam. Nope. There we go. Now, when we start talking about the different colonies, we're going to start talking about the different sections. And some of the sections are going to get confusing to you because we live in South Florida. And when we think of, a middle colony, we don't think of New York, right? You think of New York is about as north as it gets, right? But we have New England, Massachusetts. In the beginning, we're going to have Massachusetts, right? And then we're going to add other states. We're not going to add Maine for a long time. But we're going to have Connecticut, Rhode Island, things of that nature, okay? Those are going to be the New England states. Then we're going to have the middle colonies, which is mainly New York, Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, that's not a state, Pennsylvania, and those are going to be the what we're going to call the breadbaskets. Those are going to be the middle colonies. Then we're going to have the southern colonies, but then within the southern colonies, we're going to have the Chesapeake, okay? And we're going to get to all that. And so what do we have on this one? So the southern colonies are going to be, they're all going to have their distinctions and their differences, which are the same thing. That's a synonym. But they're all going to be different. They're going to have different climates. They're going to have different people. They're going to have different products that they're going to produce, right? Because you're not growing a lot of tobacco in New England. It's too cold, right? Not a lot of rice, not a lot of indigo, which is a dye, very, very expensive dye. And obviously you're not going to grow sugarcane in the north, right? And the bread baskets, that's where you're going to grow all the grains that you need for bread, right? So we have the Puritans. They came over first. They didn't like what King Henry VIII was doing with the church and the break from the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, and they wanted a more pure religious experience, right? They believed that the Anglican Church was just too much frivolity. It was just too much, like dancing and listening to music. It's like the worst, right? So the Puritans wanted something else. So you can see here, they were in Holland for a time period, and then they were like, nah, Dutchification, right? We don't want that. So, and they get permission to go to Jamestown, Virginia, right? Virginia. Remember that, right? So they come over, and that's where they're supposed to land, Virginia. They might be very religious, but they're not the best in the navigation, using the sextant, the thing that you look up at the sky and you go with the stars and stuff like that. They're not good with it. So they land a little bit north, just a tad, just a touch, right? And they land in what is modern-day Massachusetts. Now, they don't actually even land on Plymouth Rock, but if you've been up there and you've seen Plymouth, okay. That's not where they landed. You can see where they actually landed, was here on the mainland, and they didn't have, like I put there, no permission. They didn't have a right to be there, because remember, you had to seek the permission of the king to do this, okay? So, they didn't have the permission, but they did it anyways. Before they got off, though, right, what did they do? Mayflower Compact, right? Crude agreement. It's not a constitution, right? But the biggest thing here, they submitted to the will of the majority, right? So this set this word you're going to hear, 1,000 times this year. Precedent. Not president, not present, not precinct, not, I don't know. I don't know what other words is prenuptial agreement. Yeah, I don't know. Precedent, right? This sets a precedent that they're going to have rule by colonists, right? And people are going to look at this and be like, hey, from the very beginning, we wanted to rule ourselves, right? And that's the thing. Democracy, right? It's rule by the people. We give the power to the government. The government's not like, hey, here, you can have this power. No. And we'll talk about this. We'll get into it, right? Is we give the power to the government, right? And we decide how much power we want to give them based on how much we vote for and things of that nature, right? So we'll get into that. That's way down the road. So we had the Mayflower. We had the Pilgrims, right? So they had the first Thanksgiving. They had a bunch of different food. It's not all turkey and, stuffing and mac and cheese. They had some pretty gross stuff. They had some fish. They had some things that, you might not normally eat on Thanksgiving. So if you're one of those families that doesn't eat all the normal stuff, and people are like, what do you eat? Not everybody ate the same thing, right? In the first Thanksgiving, it wasn't just all turkey and stuffing, which I am a big fan of. When I have, for Thanksgiving, that's basically what I want. I want turkey, stuffing, gravy, and some cranberry sauce, right? That's it. To kind of bring the tart in with everything else, right? Just food for thought. Oh, food. You see what I did there? Now, you had this guy. He was their leader, William Bradford, right? Governor 30 times. That dude was in it to win it, right? He's there. He did a very good job of governing these people, but they landed at a very hard time. It was very cold. It was like what some consider like a mini ice age. It was much colder than it was for any time before or after. And it was hard work. They're in Massachusetts. If you've ever been to Massachusetts, it gets quite chilly, right? It gets cold, really cold, right? So they have a short growing season over the summer, which means you got to get started and you got to get everything bundled up and ready to go for winter because you're not growing anything in the winter. And oh, by the way, all the soil is crazy rocky, is not that good for farming anyways. So that's what they're used to doing. So they have to figure something out. And remember, there's no government here. It's just them. Just them, right? Can you imagine packing up with your parents, going to a foreign country, and there's nothing there? It's just forest, and you gotta survive? I know me and my parents, that would have been bad news bears. But anyways, we'll move on. All right. So they form this Massachusetts Bay Company, and they get the charter in 1629, right? And they do not like the Church of England. It's mostly around Boston. And the other big things on this one is they had 1,000 settlers, pretty big. What else is on there? Education level. Yes, they definitely favored education more, which is bing, bing, good thing, right? Need some education to not just do you need to know this in order to be a successful businessman? No, right? That's not what this is about. This is about being a well-rounded individual and learning how to learn, right? Overcome diversity. Hard class. I'm not saying it's the hardest class in campus, but it's a hard class. We got a lot of work to do, right? We have a lot of things. So this education is very, impactful. Going off on a tangent. Sorry about that. Now we got a meme break, right? I think I had a couple of them in chapter 2. So I like memes. If you don't like memes, you're out of luck, because I want to put them all the time, right? These were kind of a couple years ago, but you guys get them. Virtual learning, web-based brain booster, right? And these are almost all memes that I show you guys. If you follow me on Instagram at 8bushgreen, I make them all myself. So they're all original. Some of them are going to hit, some of them are going to miss, right? But we have to learn with all of them. I hated Google Meets, man. I know that was, what was that? That would have been your freshman year. Yeah, I was not a fan of Google Meets, but there we go. Who would win? I don't know. I bet you guys would love photomath. I bet you guys love photomath a little bit more, right? Don't try to tell me you guys don't use it. I talk to math teachers. They're like the math and history departments they're close, right? And I have a lot of friends in math department. So I know. So back to it. Massachusetts Bay, right? You can see the map of all the people that are coming over, right? So it's not like in this great migration of the 1630s came to Massachusetts Bay, right? Only 20,000 of them. A lot of them went down to the West Indies. You can see this is the Bahamas here. That was inconvenient. I know that's wrong. Inconvenient. What they came to do was this covenant with God, right? That they are here to spread the word of God, to live God's way of life, right? And that's without distractions. That's why they're going to be, not the biggest fan of the music and people who are a little more left-brain, right? Which is why we're going to have the Salem witch trials, which you are going to thoroughly enjoy. Those are going to be the day before Halloween. All right. I think they're day of Halloween. I think we're doing it on Halloween because I think Halloween's on a Monday or something like that. So that's going to be a fun day. If you are new to campus or have never been past my room for that, you're in for a surprise and for a treat. And so you can see here, the biggest thing that they're going to, and this is what you're going to think of when you think of the Northeast. I don't know why I did that with my hat, but is fishing and shipbuilding. Okay. So fishing and shipbuilding, that's going to be their major thing, right? Timber, lumber, wood, those things used to build ships. And even to this day, that's where a lot of I'm having a brain fart. Ship factories. I know they're not called ship factories. They're called whatever. Doesn't matter. That's what they build them to this day. Now it's driving me crazy. I don't remember. Okay, whatever. Massachusetts Bay. All right. And they believe they lived on a city on a hill. What else on here is a big one? They could all vote. All male property owners. That's going to be a thing. Voting. There you go. There's a point. Finger. And it's not a democracy, though. Okay. This is different. Okay. So it's different. You could vote. I guess that's all you need on that one. The purpose of government is to support God's laws and enforce religious rules. It is religious-based government, right? So everything is based around religion, and then they govern according to the rules of their religion. Okay? I need a sip. Water. Okay. All right. Next. Movie break. Man, you guys are lucky. What do we got here? Oh, Christopher Nolan. I remember this. Came out. He's my favorite director. Literally, he has a new one coming out about Oppenheimer, which I saw one preview for. I'm big into movies. And I was like, okay, that's the last time. Anytime a preview comes up now, I'm going to close my eyes. I don't want to see it anymore. I really don't even need to see any preview for a Christopher Nolan movie. It could be like, hey, this is a Christopher Nolan movie. And I'd be like, oh, I got some money here. Oh, there's 100. Ooh, look at that. I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy the ticket right now. Buy it right now. Christopher Nolan. Because Memento, haven't seen this movie. It's insane. Always. I don't think any of his are. That's a good movie. It's a little bit older, but it's really, really good. Insomnia, it's good. That one's definitely R, so get parental permission to see that one. If you want that, obviously it's in Alaska where it's dark all the time or light all the time, right? In winter and summer. And I'm pretty sure you guys know that one. And I'm really sure that you know what movie that's from. Yes, he directed this one, right? He also directed Inception, magnificent movie, Dark Knight Rises, right? These are all in order of release. That's why I like that. Interstellar, one of my favorites of all time. Love this movie. All the science is real. If you're a big science nerd, you should look into it. If you've never seen it or if you have seen it, look into the science behind it. A guy wrote a book about it from Caltech. Dunkirk, great movie, told non-sequential. Very confusing if you're not paying attention, but we'll talk about that movie later on. And then Tenet was the one that he came out with. Was it last year? The year before? Whatever. Doesn't matter. I loved it. So there you go. Movie break. Misfits. This lady, Anne Hutchinson. You have to know her name. You have to circle it. Whatever you want to do to make sure that you know who she is and her story. Okay? The reason why College Board loves to talk about her is because she stood up to the man and she stood up to God. What? So woman standing up to God and man back in the 1600s? Yes. And that's why she is so memorable. They cast her out. She says, I'm not going to be controlled by this. They cast her out. She eventually gets to Rhode Island with her 14 children. What? 14 kids? She's got a whole basketball game with backups on both sides. For children, right? Not that they're playing basketball back then. That wasn't invented way later by Naismith. So you need to know her. Then we get Roger Williams, who is going to found Rhode Island, be the founder of Rhode Island. I always feel it's weird that when you say found Rhode Island, established Rhode Island. I guess that's a better way of saying it. It was a squatter colony. You can see I put it there. Rogue Island had a nickname, right? This is where a lot of people came from or came to that were a little bit on the outside, a little bit on the outskirts of normal culture, like Anne Hutchinson and her 14 kids, right? But it was individualistic, independent, and they have the First Baptist Church. So different religion. Baptist is different than Puritan. Now, with the whole religion thing, right? If you're unsure of like, okay, Mr. Green, you're talking fast. You're like Protestant, Catholic, blah, 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 Puritan, Anglican, Catholic, Baptist. Okay. Easy way to remember this, right? You have Christianity, right? Is here. So Christianity is up top, right? I'm doing this right. Okay. And then you have Catholicism, Catholic Church. Then you have Protestantism. They are both Christian, but they are different. Then under Protestantism, you have a lot of the things that we have in this country. All right. A lot of this country is Protestant. So that's where you're going to have Baptist, Lutheran, what's the M one? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But you're going to have Anglican. These are all part of the Protestant religion, right? Beliefs. That is Christianity. So they have the same God, but they believe Jesus is different things, okay? So Catholic, and then Catholic, you have all different kinds of sects, S-E-C-T-S, of Catholic Church and Protestant. But they are both Christian, okay? All right? Because then you have Muslim and Jewish, and then you have those things, right? Completely different, all right? So we'll get to that. Connecticut River Colony. The Fundamental Orders of the Connecticut in 1639. This is a modern constitution, so this is one thing you need to remember about for Connecticut, okay? Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, 1639. All right? So make sure you get that on there. I'll give you a second to write that down. We're chugging along here. We're halfway through. Good thing, okay? Remember, you are not writing everything down here. Sorry. I'm getting all kinds of messages here. I'm messaging a teacher I met at the AP Read I went to this summer and graded all the DBQs, which is insanity, and we'll talk about that later. All right. Native Americans. What do we got here? All right. The thing about Puritans are they came to stay because they brought, you can see, they brought everybody. They brought women, children, elderly, everybody. So they brought the whole family. They're like, come on, family, let's go. Like, where are we going? To another continent. What? No, son, I want to stay here. It didn't matter. They brought everybody. So they had to make it or everybody died. All right. If you remember back when we talked about Jamestown, those were mostly men. So they didn't have that pressure of feeding their family. They just had to feed themselves. It's a big difference when you have to feed the elderly, children. They can't do the things themselves, right? So they have to rely completely on you, on the parents, right? The middle-aged people. And so the natives weren't the biggest fans, you know. There's different clashes, different areas. But as these people started spreading west, there's going to be confrontations, right? I know I try to keep this thing up in the right spot here to keep the audio the best or whatever. So I'll try. So what do we got next? All right, we're there, good there. So we have King Philip's War. Metacom was his name, and you can see there this was a pretty big war, and they called it King Philip's War, but that wasn't his name. They just changed his name because they couldn't say his name, which is the most, that's just funny. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's funny, ridiculous. So they attacked 52 towns. A lot of people died, right? They finally get him, and they do something that is one of the worst ways you could die. Is drawn and quartered and beheaded. Drawn and quartered means that they cut your stomach open. And they usually take out all your intestines and put them on your chest area and stomach. And then they have 4 horses, and they pull you in 4 different directions. So then you're quartered. And rip you apart. Yeah, no good time. And then they chop off your head. So that's what would have happened to the our framers of the Constitution. Not framers of the Constitution. Signers of the Declaration of Independence. Sorry. Yeah, because they were committing treason. right? So it was a long, drawn-out war, and especially for that time. And so they, not much resistance after they did this, right? Sold his wife and son into slavery. All around horrible things happened to him and his family. And so the New England Confederacy. So this one, the New England Confederacy, I'm trying to think. The big thing with here is just remember you need to, as we're talking, right, the New England area, what it is. This gives you a pretty good shot at it at first. Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, all these areas, New England, okay? But it's really for defense. That's basically the whole reason for doing it, right? And they did it. So you just need to know about it. That's about it. If you need more, then you can pause it. I'm just going to keep moving ahead. Then we get to this guy, Sir Edmund Andros. Look at that hair. His locks, just beautiful, right? And we're going to get to this thing, okay? The Navigation Acts. Now, the thing about the Navigation Acts is all they're trying to say, and they're going to play a big part in leading up to the Revolutionary War, is you can only trade, the colonies can only trade with certain people that the colony, the mother country that owns a colony says. So if England says, hey, you can't trade with Spain, guess what? You can't trade with Spain unless you become a smuggler. Well, what do you think people start doing? They start smuggling to make more money, right? Because if you know anything about business, if you have to sell to one person and they know you have to sell to them, they get to set the price. But when there's competition, then you have better money, bigger money, with the competition things and stuff, right? So anyways, so these get put in place by old Curly Q up there. I don't think he's fighting many battles. He doesn't look like he's a battle fighter in his armor. But, he likes to prance around and stuff like that. So you get this thing called salutary neglect. All right. And this is another thing you're going to have to remember because it's going to also have a big impact on the Revolutionary War. Basically, this was the early years. They didn't pay a lot of attention to them. And that's what the term is called, salutary neglect. When the mother country is like, yeah, we got this colony, but we got stuff going on at home, and we really aren't dealing with that. What the problem is, when you start saying, hey, we need to deal with them, then the people you're dealing with, and you're going to cut down on smuggling, you're going to put more taxes, you're going to do all these things, those people are going to fight back because they're like, hey, you haven't done anything for a long time. What are you doing this for, right? It's like if your parents, have, when you were younger, they had a curfew, and then all of, it just gets lax and lax and lax, and you really don't have a curfew anymore, and then all of a sudden, you do something wrong, and they're like, curfew, you have to be home at 9:30 p.m., you can't, and then you're like, what? And then it's like this whole big fight, right? Because you got used to no curfew, and then they put one on you, right? So that's kind of like what England is going to do off and on with the colonies, right? Which is going to be the big problem, which is we'll talk about later, right? So, yeah. They didn't like the navigation laws, okay? So then we have the Glorious Revolution, right? He tried to, after King James II is dethroned, and they have a new king and queen, they take over, and this guy has to leave. Well, he is hated so much that you can see if you read this thing in the background, where is that? Yeah. They're the orange. And so Andros tried to escape, dressed as a woman, was shipped back to England. He tried to escape, didn't work, gets shipped back to England. The whole thing kind of collapses, right? Now, Massachusetts becomes a royal colony in 1691. Now, the difference is that means it is controlled by the king. A royal colony is controlled by the king. It is not controlled by a local governor. You have, now, after this glorious revolution, this is what I'm talking about. Navigation laws, they're like, don't worry about it, right? This is salutary neglect. Again, this is 1691, okay? So this is still a long time before the revolution, but it's going to push people closer to it in the fact that when they start reinstituting the navigation laws after the French and Indian War in 1754, people are going to be like, you haven't done this in decades. And they have a big problem with it. So, salutary neglect, navigation laws, commit those to memory. You're gonna need them. All right? Well, we don't need these. That's older announcements. Sorry, I didn't mean to put those in there. Then we get New York. Well, that's a big thing with New York. It used to be New Amsterdam. It's very, very important for shipping, okay? That's the big thing with New York. If you've ever been to New York, it's right on the water, big ports, things like that. Pennsylvania. Now, this one is a little bit more important because you got this guy, William Penn. He looks a lot like the guy when you make the oats, Quaker Oats, right? Because it was settled by Quakers. So he wanted religious freedom, right? And his father was owed all this money. He got this big, huge land grant, which is basically Pennsylvania. He goes in, establishes Pennsylvania as a religious haven, right? And he didn't try to talk it up. He wasn't like, hey, if you come here, we're going to get gold, 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 and you're going to get all these awesome things. He's like, you come here, you are going to work your butt off. You're going to have your own stuff, and it's going to be yours, but you are going to work for it, right? And so he wanted the things to help build a society, like you can see. Farmers, masons, shoemakers, carpenters. I used to have, instead of shoemakers, oh my God. Cobblers. Jeez, that took way too long. And that is not a tasty fruit dessert. A cobbler is somebody who makes a shoe, right? And he would be truthful in it. So you definitely have to remember William Penn, Pennsylvania, right? Okay. And that was very, very planned. Philadelphia was. And that's why if you go to Philadelphia, unlike like Boston, Philadelphia is like squares, it's grids, it's very organized. Where like Boston, you want to go north, well, now you have to start off south because eventually you're going to get north or something like that. It's crazy. I've only been to Boston once, but it was pretty nuts. There was a separation of church and state, like we put here. A lot of different ethnic groups. I put that at the bottom. But Quakers are nonviolent. And so the English didn't like them because they would not serve in the military. What time are we at? 33 minutes. We're doing well. We got 5 slides left. Yeah. So they had oil lamps, which quickly are going to turn into, eventually, well, not quickly. Those will turn into electric lamps, right? Whale oil, right? Then they'll go to kerosene. Whale oil, that's why they killed almost all the whales. So let's go. Go ahead. We're moving ahead. New Jersey. Yeah. Not much to say there. Don't worry about it. Delaware. Its own assembly. Now, the middle colonies. These are the bread colonies. Okay? And if you look, okay, you have New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey. Not Maryland. Not Virginia. The reason why is because Delaware is not on the Chesapeake Bay. And we talked about that yesterday. Maryland, Virginia, tobacco, Chesapeake Bay. Okay? But they're known as the bread colonies, exports of grain. This is going to be a big thing that people forget, or kids, they just get confused because we live in South Florida, and to say that New York is a middle colony sounds redunculous, right? That just sounds stupid, but it's not, because you have New England. Okay? So commit those to memory, all right? New Jersey, New York, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. I don't have like some kind of song or to help you remember them. Sorry. And they did have some seaports that you could put here, but they were pretty much the most mixed out of everybody. All right. And I put there the most American of all the colonies, right? And just a big group of different individuals. And it's not a melting pot. Don't ever call it a melting pot. I'll tell you why in class, but I don't want to get into that here. It's not a melting pot. It's a salad. Let's see if you can figure that out. All right. Now, don't worry about the timeline. There. Oh, well, that's it. Okay. Oh, that came up quicker than I thought. So, this is the end of chapter 3. I'm going to start chapter 4. I'll record that here pretty quickly. And 5, and then we're done. And you just have to do a meaningful notes of these. And I look forward to seeing all of you next Wednesday for the first day of school. What? Okay. That's all I got. Peace.